Welcome to Story Ideas on the Fly, where we pick a random idea out of the hat and try to develop it. What do we have today?
A prequel to Snow White about the exile of the seven dwarfs and how they came to a place where they met her.
All right.
Okay,
Let's see.
never thought of this.
Seven dwarves.
Okay.
So in the original, they didn't have distinct personality. Disney's the only version that's ever given them distinct personalities from each other, as far as I know. So we can do whatever we want with them, as far as what their personalities are, giving them some individuality and.
I think there's a group trope called The Magnificent Seven Samurai, which is specifically about having seven main characters.
Okay,
that could be fun.
I have an odd idea. Okay, this goes back to an act class many years ago. In kind of a, but
all right.
What if you won't get it from that? But what if these seven dwarfs actually escaped Munchkins from Munchkinland?
All right.
So why did they have to escape? What it went on?
But
how did
this
they
is about
escape?
Snow White.
And the seven dwarfs, right? And so they
you could cross the two over.
Yes, we do. So they were
Not saying
escaped
we have
Munchkins
to,
from
but you could.
Munchkinland, and then they come over, and that's how they end up in the forest, was getting out of there. And now they're trying to, they're going, oh no, not claiming to be Munchkins. No, we're just dwarfs. And so when she comes in, that's
that
why
feels too disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like too disconnected. I feel like we have to relate it to the evil queen. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise,
Okay.
it would feel like a completely different story shoved into a pre-existing story. It's like having Avatar and then having a side plot that lasts 200 episodes about the cabbage merchant and what got him to decide to start growing cabbages. And it all turned out to be because of slugs.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway, so the evil queen's whole main personality trait is vanity.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, just as a side note, there is an evil. There are in Oz, evil witches are a thing. So you could bring something together using that.
It depends on how
You
you
don't
want
have
to do
to.
that. There are
wanna hear your idea, though.
multiverses where you do stuff like that. Where usually it will be one story will be set in one setting and then move to the next type thing.
Well,
but they're all the same.
especially if you went on to tell the story of Snow White and you brought in some other fairy tales and aspects and created a fuller world.
So you want to go, why would the evil queen have banished them or something?
Well,
why would they be
not
escaping?
so much. I'm just trying to figure out who were they before they were banished. And wait, what does the prompt say?
It says about the exile of the seven
exile.
dwarves and how they came to the place where they met her.
So they were definitely exiled for some reason.
Yes.
I mean, you could as easily give them a more Tolkien-like environment and have them thrown out of the mountains for some reason.
So I like the idea of having the seven dwarves. Dwarves in a lot of fiction tend to be very industrious. They tend to be magical craftsmen. I mean, if we look, the original Tolkien dwarves were based off Norse dwarves who. The main thing was they crafted all the legendary items in all of Norse mythology.
Yep.
So, crafting is a big thing. I think they want to incorporate the magic mirror into this.
The dwarves are the ones who created it?
The dwarves.
Yes.
I like that.
That actually sounds fun.
So the dwarves created the magic mirror. And then something happened that made her not like what they did.
Was it the queen who banished them, or was it the other dwarves? Of course, you don't necessarily want them to have good relationships with the queen when Snow White shows up.
So here's my idea.
Or you could have it where they get banished from the dwarf land because the queen got her hands on the mirror and it was a bad thing. Sorry, go on.
Here's my concept. These seven dwarves, they're probably the only local dwarves in the land, but they probably had like a small business or something making magic items.
Mm-hmm.
One day, the queen approaches them and commissions him for something for the magic mirror, because she wants it to tell her that she's the most beautiful in the land, basically, type thing.
Yeah.
Because
but it was
you have a magic mirror that tells you that tells you anything you want, and you ask it who's the fairest in the land. Like, seriously, the evil queen's an idiot. Anyway.
Why not ask her for the cure for cancer?
That's kind of the whole point.
Because she doesn't have cancer.
Yeah. But
she might get it. Ask it for the preventative for cancer.
What they do is they create a mirror that can show you the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mirror of truth.
Yeah, it's a magic mirror of truth. And let's kind of expand it. It doesn't just speak to you, it can also show you things. However, this also would have the side effect that when you see things reflected in the mirror, it'll sometimes change so that instead of seeing a normal reflection, you see their true reflection. So someone who's pure of heart, even if they would suddenly be a lot cleaner. Like someone who's pure of heart could roll around in the mud, look in the mirror, and they see themselves as completely clean because they're pure of heart type thing.
Okay.
Well, the evil queen, she got her hands on this mirror, she looked at it, and then one day it shifted, and she saw an old hag. We'll take the old hag version from the end of the story. And because of that, she didn't get rid of the mirror because it was still useful to her, but almost kind of hid it away in a basement and banished the dwarves because it didn't do what she wanted it to do.
No, I don't think that she hid it away in the basement, okay? I like where you're going with this.
I know, I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Let's have the dwarves.
That's why it's called brainstorming.
It is. I like this idea. It reflects kind of
truth.
Truth. So it reflects who you are. And so at times it will show her as the old hag. At times it'll show her. It can vary on that. But the big thing is that she finds this thing both a blessing and a curse. Because she doesn't like it telling her, no, you're not, you're this cruel
You're actually a pretty terrible person.
Yeah, you're actually very selfless. You're
selfish.
Selfish. Your people are suffering, so it's telling her things she doesn't want to hear. But at the same time, the one good thing it's telling her is you are the most beautiful. Yes, you're outside. Your exterior beauty is the most beautiful in the land. And then the reason she doesn't get rid of it is because one, it is telling her she's the most beautiful, and the other, there are some truths that are going to be very convenient for her to know.
Hey, she's planning on uprising against me.
Right?
Yeah. That's why it says she'd lock it away in a basement, because that way or a tower. That way she still has access to it, but it's not constantly like right there in her bedchamber going,
oh yeah,
you're terrible.
I mean, a lot of the point though was that she would go to it regularly and ask it if she's still the prettiest. Which is kind of silly, but
that probably means something a little in between, where like a closet or something.
Put in a chamber
or maybe someplace. She hides it for a while, but then as Snow White starts growing up and becoming pretty, she starts getting nervous, and so she goes to the mirror, starts asking every day, "Who's the fairest? Who's the fairest? I'm the fairest, right? Yeah, okay."
So the thing
what
is
about
this:
tomorrow?
now
she's still pretty. Dang it!
Now we've got the dwarves. She wanted something that was just going to tell her a bunch of good things about herself, and so she's upset with this mirror that they made for her, where they were thinking they were doing something good because they were thinking, okay, if she knows the truth, how can knowing the truth be bad?
Yeah. They're going, truth is a good thing.
The truth is a very useful tool for a ruler. It's not a useful tool if your main goal is to trick yourself into thinking you're better than you are.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. But she gets upset because it's not saying everything she wants to hear. And so she banishes them. They cannot go back to the dwarves because they will be looked down upon in the dwarven world for selling magical items to humans, because they are the
dwarves think that the magical humans are stupid.
Well, it's
or
because
for the fact that the item he sold was the magic mirror, which ended up in evil hands.
They made it. I mean, I think the dwarves themselves made the magic.
Yeah, but the dwarven society, the seven dwarves made the mirror. The dwarven society might kick them out and be like, "Wait, you gave magic, powerful magic. You put it in the hands of an evil queen who used it to help oppress her people."
He was saying that there aren't really other dwarves in this city. They stay in their land. And so I think that when the seven dwarves made the decision to come and work with the humans and make things for the humans, they kind of had to give that up, because if they go back, they'll be looked down upon because you were those people that, went and lived with humans and sold to humans, and that's just not done. So I think they're kind of, they might be accepted back, but it's not going to be necessarily pretty. So instead of going back to the dwarves, and they also could feel, the other thing is they could feel that if they go back to the dwarves, that this queen might want to get revenge on them.
And they don't want to bring that trouble to the Dwarven Nation. Dwarven society.
And so,
honestly,
I think the queen is a much better reason to...
Honestly, geographically speaking, if you want to wage war against dwarves, just give up.
Yeah.
You can't fight them unless you have a dragon with you.
Depending, though, on your world, and remember the queen has a mirror of truth.
Okay.
So she might
I have a mirror of truth. I can ask what their weaknesses are, and it's going to tell me, dude, everyone in this entire kingdom has magical weapons that can fire lightning bolts at you, and you can't even fit through their tunnels because these guys are 3 feet tall. You will have to crawl in.
She's a pretty skinny lady.
You still have to crawl in, and you can't wield a sword while you're crawling, and these guys can wield it just fine.
Yeah, but she may have some magic.
One word: dynamite.
And she has some.
And they've lined their
dynamite is a dwarven creation. Yeah. Where would she get it? She's exiled the dwarves.
And she okay. I could come up with some ways to fight.
Oh no,
because she also
point being
she has
they wouldn't want to cause
herself.
Trouble for the dwarves. So.
She has
I can understand that.
And even if the dwarves would end up winning, you still don't want. There's still going to be losses, so they don't want to do that. So now I think. So then they went out to the where they're living now, out in the woods,
they're in
and
the
just
woods.
built a cottage in
quietly,
the woods.
and
And so now what they're doing, I think, is they are mining because they're miners. And they are mining, and they are miners, not miners. I get that reference.
It's not too hard for dwarves to find valuable things,
right? And so then they're selling them to people in the city who need the resources, and that's how they're making their living.
But they're kind of probably somewhat depressed about they were kicked out of their culture, and so now this is why they've kind of given up on a lot of stuff, which is why their house is so ridiculously messy.
Okay, their house could just be ridiculously messy because there's 7 guys living there.
Yeah.
If there's 7 guys living there, it's
7
going...
guys and no company. 7 guys and no company. Yes, some guys are neat freaks.
7 guys.
Or very, very neat.
Yeah, he's actually pretty neat, so he doesn't get this. Were all your roommates neat in college?
3 of them were.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Okay.
3 of them were. Out of the other 3, 2 of them were in a different room, so I didn't care, but it looked fairly neat whenever I went into that room. And the other one was an absolute mess maker, and anytime his stuff started to encroach on my stuff, I would just push it back into his room.
Okay, but sis, you get a lot of guys, if they're not having girls or company or stuff coming over,
if they don't have company.
Oddly enough, the one that actually was the messiest was the one who had girls come over the most.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway.
The
point is, guys can make this.
But, somebody in the comments explain to him what happens when you get a whole bunch of guys in an apartment with no girls to impress.
Anyway, the point is,
we organize it efficiently.
Actually, that would be really funny if everything was a mess, but at the same time, it was like, so this is a giant pile of whatever, and this is it's a very organized mess.
When she comes and cleans, there are actually some dwarves who are like, you messed up the pile, this is how it goes, and she goes... you could actually show some character.
Some OCD dwarves.
But you could have character in Snow White when he goes, okay, you messed this up. This isn't how I like my stuff. And she goes, oh, well, then teach me how you do like your stuff. Okay, I'll start.
Instead of making a pile of clothes, why not? I'm going to put
Let's compromise, and I'll get you a shelf.
Exactly.
So now it looks pretty, but you can still have all your stuff in the corner where you like it.
Or now we might get you a nice bin to throw those things in instead of having the pile on the floor. Right.
Exactly. So you could actually show some character development. And,
I want to extend this and actually do the whole Snow White story, not just the beginning.
Yeah,
yes, this would need the whole Snow White story.
This could be more than one book. You could do the story that's the prequel. You could do the story that's when Snow White comes. You could then do, if you wanted... maybe have some extra stories, another story afterwards, and make it a trilogy if you wanted, because there could be lots going on. Like, who's the prince?
So do you want to figure out the
personality? Some random prince that showed up, or is the prince someone?
Do you want to figure out Snow White, the prince, and the dwarves' personalities? How much time do we have?
How much time do we have?
We've been going for about 15 minutes, so
All right.
Don't want too much longer.
Never mind.
All right.
then.
Songs to watch. But okay.
Obviously, the villain's the queen.
Well, maybe we'll throw in the hat the next step of this.
That would be
I
fun.
did it sometime. The villain's the queen, and
You've got the prince for Snow White, but could the dwarves have love interests eventually? Maybe not.
see, I would like
immediately.
to see eventually, because if you're really trying to do this, because this is supposed to be a story. Yes, it's about Snow White, but not just her. And so I would like
This
to actually
is the dwarf story.
right. Prequel. So if you want to get the whole dwarf story in there, then you could do a lot of development with them and them kind of saying, okay, here's our ways we sneak into the city and, do things, and, her helping repair relationships with the dwarven society and saying, no, they've done a lot of good for humanity, and, you could do things. Go ahead.
Did it, in the original, did it ever say that the dwarves were all male?
Did it in the original?
I do not know.
I don't know.
It's
Where's
traditionally
Julia when we
male,
need her?
but
If you want to go mythologically, female dwarves didn't really exist much in actual mythology. In fact, because of that's kind of why in a lot of fantasy it's hard to tell the difference between male and female dwarves, and like even the females will have beards in Tolkien, because there weren't female dwarves in Norse mythology really.
in most stories,
They just dwarves didn't really have genders. They were more born from rock.
I'm going to
Fair enough.
ask for folklore, fairy tales, and fantasy on that exact topic.
All right, Julia threatens me. So that's just what I know.
In our version, I think we should have some girl dwarves, and we should have some love stories.
We don't.
I think the dwarves need to end up becoming advisors to the queen. That is being Snow White, because she's the rightful heir.
And the dwarves, you don't have to have them all be boys, but they don't even have to all live in the same house. They could have a little, community there with their, and Snow White could come in and, she could come in and, kind of move into their community center or something,
Actually,
do that.
I like the idea of having there be like three main houses.
Yeah.
One's a barracks where they all sleep, basically.
I like the idea though, because
one's basically a crafts workshop, and one's just a shed for storage type thing.
I think that makes sense for dwarves.
A bunch of craftsmen go out into the middle of the woods. Yeah, they might build individual houses for each of them, but it's more likely that they're just going to build one house with 7 beds type thing.
Yeah, so...
I do like the idea though when Snow White comes in of her, because I do kind of enjoy she comes in and really a lot of the dwarves' masculine energy versus her feminine energy, and they're balancing each other out.
They're dwarves.
Fair point.
Dwarves, but you don't have feminine girls. You have tomboys at best.
You could have girls in there, or you could have. Oh, that could be fun. You could kind of play off some
female
of that
dwarves have masculine energy
and beards. You have to give them glorious beards.
No beards.
That would actually be fun.
She has the most glorious beard.
That could actually be fun, having some of the interplay between these girl dwarves and Snow White, who's a lot more of a princess, and
Okay. I would
this
really
would be interesting.
love to figure out. We don't have a lot of time, but I would love to figure out who the prince really is, because I don't like the idea of just some prince that
he just shows up.
Meets. Yeah,
childhood friend.
He could be a childhood friend. He could be.
Well, he's a prince.
Isn't the original story Snow White technically the rightful heir to the throne, or is that?
I think so.
I think so.
Because her dad was the king.
Yeah. So in that case, we don't actually need it to be a prince. If we want to incorporate kind of a interesting character, I mean, if she's the rightful heir, she's going to take over, and so we don't. So the only reason princess is married.
Yeah, but he could be a second son or a third son. So
but if you want to actually pull him more into the story and have him be a character in the prequel instead of just appearing when Snow White does, have him already be in the kingdom. Have him be like a high-ranking knight.
Actually,
that'd be fun.
Another thing you could do is, if you wanted to, you could take this prince and have him from another kingdom. But one of the reasons that the queen originally wanted this mirror was not just to see who's the prettiest, but to know what's going on, because there's threat of war between the two kingdoms.
To know what's going on in other kingdoms.
So then,
I mean, there's a lot of power in a mirror of truth.
Prince, she's also got that, hey, we've met the princess, could unite our kingdoms.
Yeah. The prince could be trying there to see what's going on, to investigate. He could be an ambassador. He could even potentially be an apprentice to one of the dwarves. Because
let's make him like a second or third son.
He could be there commissioning. He could go to the dwarves and commission his own item.
Or he could be someone
no. Here's what it is:
taking their stuff into the city to sell.
Yeah.
No. Here's what it is. So the prince came to this kingdom to commission the dwarves for something, but he came in right after the dwarves were banished, and so he starts investigating, trying to gather information for his kingdom. And then eventually finds the dwarves, helps them out occasionally, and then when Snow White joins up with them, he can also join them with the quest to take back the kingdom.
Okay,
I think you got a lot.
So we've got
potential here.
There's a lot of ideas for the king.
One thing I want to say, I think this is one of the few stories where having the villain act like an idiot actually makes sense. Because one thing, she has magic and a mirror of truth, so she's really powerful.
But she's also very vain and childish and petty.
Yes, exactly. So this is one of those few times where you can actually have a character act like an idiot, and it probably it wouldn't drive me up the wall.
Nice.
All right.
So what are your thoughts? What would you like to see in this?
I don't know, boys. Would this be something you would write?
Yeah,
I think I'd have fun with this.
Sure.
I could have fun with it. It'd be interesting how different each of us.
No. We should come up with how the dwarves act, and you should write for us Snow White. I will give you the masculine energy.
If I write it, I'm going to really get the different kingdoms and the dwarf kingdom and
the relationships.
And so
that's how I'd write it.
Yeah, it's all going to be different.
I'd probably make a lot of what the dwarves as craftsmen would be what I'd focus on probably.
Okay.
What would you focus on?
Yep, and we'd love more prompts for our hat. We'll see you next time.